Oh, there are people who have predicate acts roles against me after the World Trade Center attack. And they had it before the World Trade Center attack. And I recorded that, not trying to. Strangers asked me for requests for help, make confessions to me. And there rules, there's a line of people that pretended they had fake conversations with me in databases. Other people changed their communications with me about this. Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, they had roles of the World Trade Center attack through names that also had roles already with all sides of criminal and civil cases. The news, their lawyers, their family members, the courts at the same time, the same thing. The differences of their positions with the court. Known and unknown, no, because even they're used remotely there. Increasingly, Connecticut courts, plural, have roles with a whole bunch of names who have roles of predicate acts on my street and on all sides of my house and all sides of their houses. Various ways this is recorded. And it's manifest that way. And how it's recorded is a time collusion / that's with overt criminal enterprises, terrorists now too, in the counters to them. There are people with the name O'Neill involved with the intelligence community with their stories. WTNH has roles with the FBI next to them. And their roles planting evidences all along from the old Weathersfield founding locations and spots next to it with people collusion with them all the way along that road through time. But with stores on corners of streets, their conjunctions to Route 175 from there through Newington into New Britain are people involved with planting predicate acts in databases and then acting tied to it and tied to their changing and faking what's actually recorded, including on campuses filmed 24/7. They're using that to put people fake ties to each other, fake natures of ties to each other. Roles with cover-ups of already having been used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically, delusions, wrought readings of statutes and precedents and reality and more, while being haven't been used remotely that way. And the difference of it there or at other locations, all, or at all natures of crime scenes and next to all locations in everyone, all natures of conjunctions to people. They're attaching kids and their family members increasingly to fake communications. They're tricking people to be like around people that they call their peers, to strangers, to lie about why they what came first, and then they're not checking that part. They're self-valuing the right to lie, and offensively confessing things with communications being distinct from speech too. We would have had this understood clearly had American history been taught properly. It is principle to understand how James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan then went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan, which was to force key figures at key locations to break the rules of the crazy torture, extortion, slavery method against everyone sickly distinctly too. Everyone though, non-distinctly against them, but everyone sickly distinctly too. All natures of wealth, those differences, roles screening it because it's right there. That's part of the evidence that show there's also hyperforeign involved. There's a breaching method involved. You don't bring up economics and leave out the roles of that with the breaching method. There's a difference between criminally foreign influenced natures of business and diplomacy. There are internationally monitored conversations that are forced and still they're abridged. They cannot afford to have their language discerned properly, and they can't get away without self-valuing the collusion / that's already been there. The difference of that, all natures of crime scenes they have collusions with. These psychiatrists and people and their patients and people and the security there and the lawyers, hospitals throughout the country, they're tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence. They make fake sides of things where they're forcing people to be, including when even if they have cameras there, like at prisons. Oh, the cameras don't work. In other words, they'll just change fake what's there. No one's checking. They have never stopped being collusions. There's a prison in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, involved with people and directly involved with child abusers proven through time for years, first forced. Those same people had time collusions with use slash S self-value of all kinds of criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects of nature, and delusions with the crime scenes in of their criminals in their prison at Sandy Hook. People involved with the serial killer's body dumping spot and next to it. Increasingly, as people involved with Justin Levitsky sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has rules with people that went to my grammar school. I don't think he went to my grammar school, but with people also named Mark Violet. Also, I don't think went to my grammar school. And they have roles with military at UConn and at Central Connecticut State University. Also with interreligious spots. And with ones that within as ones there were collusions with other peoples through time. They're making instances of people knowing each other through the years for real quick seconds, and then they're having people's names repeated and make it look like people were in locations where they never were. They're putting sequence ships. These are also names that are increasingly brought up by rules of World Trade Center predicate acts. That Connecticut's Channel 3 News made me to fake conversations with them about the World Trade Center. And they had and have recorded before the World Trade Center attack roles with a whole bunch of different countries, including people from Saudi Arabia, and into religious spots involved with the child defenders, leaders of kids, first force, and they had roles with that, with the intelligence next to them too, through time. These are people that have been attaching me to fake communications with everyone around me, including my family, since I was a kid, and changed communications. They also pretended I had conversations with them. They never were at all about legal cases and about my father with the Leahy family, increasingly involved with New Britain Superior Court with judges and prosecutors and their family members, involved with the Rick Cianfaglione and a Timothy O'Brien, his brother and family members. And roles with all different police departments and roles with mayors, former mayors, with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Turns out they're involved with all kinds of natures of medical corruption and delusions and all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes that they claim to be legal. As the people, the same ones that are supposed to be countering such, they're using those locations. It has something to do with the names at and next to the state corrections offices. There's a Lance Cuddy involved with a Daryl Sullivan, who involved with one of the teachers as a kid. Confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed. There's a Lena's Pizza with a Daryl Sullivan on Park Street. He's involved with I believe her name is Sandquist, Michelle Sandquist. I don't know if she has that was her maiden name or what it is, but that was further roles with the principal child offender and with people with the name Dylan and some Mendez police. These are some black KKK Confederate flag themed, Latino, Italian themed, Korean themed. So Afghani leaders, kids themed, collusions with retired police chiefs from Weathersfield with the same house/S involved too, increasing then, people that moved into the house when I was in fourth grade. One of the kids is in my fourth grade, but not in my same class. Man, I never had a class with them at that grammar school. Already, they're putting in fake things in databases when I was in second grade and third grade. They're doing like, okay, they're going to be timed outside. They're going to be outside for a fire drill, and this person is going to go up and tell this person this thing. Increasingly, people tied to a Rick Cianfaglione. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed people with the name Intelligence Committee at Hartford Hospital with the name Leahy. A bunch of men and women with the Leahy family at Hartford Hospital. are involved with all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and predicate acts with little tricks into databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties between kids and adults. And you know, there are proofs that from off campuses too. It's recorded that also that from off campuses, they're just influencing the people to look away and ignore that it's not their job, like things with security and things with healthcare, where they're putting fake things in databases. Increasingly, there's people with the name Riley involved with conversations and put in databases. They have nurses involved years ago, and they have more involved. These are more people with overt criminal enterprises and private ones involved with grammar school kids and middle school kids who are also putting fake things, fake ties, and nature ties to kids that weren't even in their grammar school and middle school. And they're trying the same ones. There are two. They try to make fake exceptions consciously. They don't understand this themselves to an extent because they are being and have been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw. Joe DeMoro, there are proofs that, in other words, he knows that I recorded him with the police that were putting fake things with the courts too with him, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and proven child abusers, leaders of kids years apart. There are the FBI director, former Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, John LeConte. He's also involved with the Dawn LeConte and her educators, involved with predicate acts with child offenders, including sexual, medical, at the same time legal, judges and prosecutors, their family members. Increasingly, people involved with Wethersfield Pizza House, involved with wire crime acts and methods of Wethersfield police, switching and forging names, involved with child offenders with them, intercampuses. A whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, have a Stephen Stocko involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, falsified police reports and wire crime acts of the Wethersfield police, switching names too. It means to get them on paper, one name in sequence. I don't remember the name of it, but they're through businesses since before it is the business there now. People with the name Kerr and a whole bunch of people tied to them and the name DeMoro and Cololo have roles with the corner of Southstein Highway and Two Route Highway with various judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic military and intercampuses. Their educators are increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with those influences from off campuses to put predicate acts in the databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties between kids. They're also measuring measuring where the kids are going to walk in little exceptions, because these are timed collusions with a whole bunch of different countries too. I don't know Daryl Chandler at all. He sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm he has roles with people from Korea and with people with the name DeMoro and with people with the name Kolvinskis and others I don't know the names of, associated with Ray Colol and his father, Ray Colol. And they have there's a Phil Colol involved with them, Phil. And he's involved also with Whiting Forensics with a Bob Chase and a Joshua Julian with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Joshua Julian's involved with some KKK black-themed, Latino-themed intelligence with a Mark Violet next to Trinity College and next to Central Connecticut State University with people from UConn and a whole bunch of people at Harvard with foreign and domestic military involved with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, roles, wire crime acts and roles, sequence shifts with intelligence families near me. In other words, and with the black KKK Confederate flag theme. And he repeated the name Joshua Julian to me. Joshua Julian is one of the ones on Facebook page of the principal child abuser, one of the ones who forced that. And he was planting evidence with the courts and the police forms and the mayors and things involved, including mayors further involved with more child offenders on Park Street with this in Hartford, with a Daryl Sullivan and a Lance Cuddy, who are also on and off the state corrections offices, involved with more sexual and medical offenders of kids, and ones involved with the other countries with the World Trade Center attack terrorists. There are people with the name O'Neill involved with West Hartford campuses and with Wethersfield campuses, and with conversation with wire crime action methods, whiting forensics, also involved with other federal evidences, crimes, and predicate acts with them. Now, these are also people who are cowards with guns, switching and forging names and refusing to get on paper since I was a kid, putting all fake exceptions too, as collusion/S with a whole bunch of different countries increasingly. It is important to get them on paper. In other words, part of the evidence is how they attach me and everyone around me to faked and changed communications since I was a kid. And that's also what I caught them doing with the kids. In other words, it's not by accident. These are CNN sources. These are Ukrainian families and Russian families. I don't know all their names, but they're with the foreign and domestic military and intelligence at Hartford Hospital leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since as collusions from there. And they have rules of torture methods before they even criminally legalized it. Look how the former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act, the RICO statute. They have people grouped wrong. They have the criminal enterprises grouped wrong. That's recorded because they have time collusion/S with them and with the people with the racketeering with the differences, their own and other people's differences, the men of the interbranch in the intelligence item and the women. And this is relative to what's really recorded with the campuses. And they have the strengths and weaknesses of every difference used as systems tactical area from that which is showing us the hyper simultaneous by showing us its relativity. It's showing us Earth is right where it is about to be too hot or about to be too cold. Earth is right where we are being shown a whole bunch of ways, a special difference here too. And we could ignore nature's system where it's further positive or negative to itself as a quality diffusion. Also valuing our contemplation if we are further positive or not. And if we ignore it, it shows a negative identity of relationship to itself. Where and how, for example, all these ways it shows us about a special difference. And it forces it from here. Lease of Hadith is a scientific term. More probably and more practically, what ancient pantheism was about, being led by how it is functional being, that there is one identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. It is what we discern. It is a body that we can discern, that being the name of each of the verbs, the participle natures, for example, a present participle and a past participle. These are verbs inflected. Now they're not as a means to discern. They're not in the form of not being used as a main verb, as a predicate. A gerund is a verb inflected. In other words, these are hyper additional. Words for verb, names for verb, because we have to discern its complete identity. Because we have to discern its every complete identity, semi-nature relationship to the complete identity of all space/existence to the extent we can discern. And it comes with its complete identity of relationship to itself, every subject. That is true always. Otherwise, it demonstrates it too. Like no other identity of volume could. No other identity of volume could not be our species body, could not be the other species bodies, but could be both anyway at the same time. And note how humanity has criminal foreign influences while all the other species bodies don't. And the reason they are self-valued is because there was a torture, extortion, slavery method that had been sustained since before modern religious messages were born. When we examine the quality and the aspects and nature of debate itself as criminal insidiousness nature, they're all nature. I'm not even a lawyer. Nature itself shows us there are needs to syntactically appreciate also it as criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness nature. 3 volumes of it as 3 parts of a hyper invisible but still discernible breaching method. And our needs to name that a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise and to bring 3 acts. One being the Anti-Hyper-Archetypal Criminal Enterprise Act. I'm not even a lawyer. The ACE Act. One being the Who Disbelieves Act. Like, who disbelieves? Anyone who leaves out how we have black people as whites of ice from the subject of slavery. And then, let alone hyper additionally, leaving out and changing what our founders communicated, which we know was distinct from what they said. And even if you didn't read about it, if you pretend you can't believe that what they said was measured by a breaching method, you're not paying attention, and or your tactical delusions are out too. It wasn't to counter a tea tax while slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies. The sick, crazy laws against every single person. And relative to what they said, relative to internationally monitored conversations. I learned that in notes at Central Connecticut State University, if anyone was found out to have been speaking outside of internationally monitored conversations, they sent to hurt, killed worse than those people. Now, just like every day, hundreds and thousands of people are dying in Ukraine. Russians are getting killed the whole time. This is also rolls with locking. The only counters to the worst murder, things like murders, predicate acts of our locations, areas, collusions with it. When did the police forms not have guilt? With what really, for example, which trials are about? When did the courts not have guilt? See, they had the need to pretend they have. You had a certain type of victim / hyper victim, each name of each of the sciences. Otherwise, that body is sentenced, including if that body is a majority of people, including if it is everyone. A whole bunch of different types of, quote, white, unquote. A whole bunch of, a whole bunch of people with languages don't even understand each other. And when they translate, they're fighting to use the same quality aspects of fact treatment nature as criminal insidiousness too. Criminal insidiousness nature of positive treatments, negative treatments, A through Z, including our own country. Because locations, areas, and states had our founders' communications replaced. And it measured and maintains people only capable of blaming other things, others, or selves for what it cost. And that's forced, too, because of how nature itself is forcing demonstrations of that. This breaching method originally and still keeps nature's demonstrations effectively used, functionally, to keep people blaming other things, others, or selves with those demonstrations, with and as that shock and awe, and as counters to it, and as the nature debate. The January 6th treatments were to force a quality of fact treatment nature collusion /S cover up /S. These are the CNN has roles next to Central Connecticut State University with Paul Manafort Drive, and with foreign and domestic military involved with psychiatry in the databases, and their family members at their houses, planting evidence on all sides of other people's houses. Mark Violet told me he has some black KKK Confederate flag thief and involved with his educators and his family and people next to the state capitol involved with the military, foreign and domestic. I don't even know other names. And they have something to do, him and his brother. And people with that girl who was dragged to her death, involved with the Joe DeMauro, involved with planting evidence on my street with the police, and with the Tony DeMauro, and with a Heather Hansen, and people on Church Street through time. I don't even know other names. A bunch of people tied to the people, Weathersfield police, who are also with a whole bunch of different countries and criminal enterprises increasingly involved with them, not legitimately undercover, and their roles with acting professors too, with WTNH, with the founding locations next to them, planting evidences on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, Main Street in Old Weathersfield, all the way along Route 175. Mike Pandolf will tell you this is true. I never tried to contact him in my life, Mike Pandolf. That's one of the ways it's recorded. He's involved too with increasingly with people as one of the people tied to Ray Reynolds. Ray Reynolds is involved increasingly with people with the name Kevin Harris and his family involved with, and the Leahy family involved with also the daughter of a principal when I went to the principal child abuser school. I mean, before it was the principal child abuser was brought up to me by people associated with a Joshua Julian, who was also quoting news predicate acts roles from years before as ones who through time increasingly Connecticut's news locations have roles with mayors and with other natures of politicians and their family members, and courts and the same thing, and police forms, plural, and a whole bunch of different countries at the same time. And their roles with predicate acts with facts, methods at and between each of the campuses, each age and nature of campus, the differences of them were used too by the breaching method, but it showed everyone already had collusions with them, how they need to hide use that, delete their use / SL value of those differences too. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. We will not, we will return and appreciate at last what James Madison and our founders behind him really communicated, what that plan was really about. Nature itself forces three natures of Native American founders before our founders were even born. But then again, there are hyper additionally coupled with their value, then coupled with, and as James Madison, who didn't have free speech yet. Once we appreciate him properly, we're directed to get the Constitution unabridged and appreciated why hyper additionally we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them, let alone to argue about their roles, which was not even arguable, with the state of Connecticut corrections offices and the judicial branch offices and conjunctions to them of all natures, even when people drive by and they have intelligence collected with that. All kinds of methods of having people communicate opposite things. They're why are you communicating with them? People are forced to be around the same locations. See, this is part of the things that are clearer than day, that a breaching method caused concentrated on all locations / tactically denatured, including the suburbs, before America's founders were even born. Again, slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. Again, too, the nature of debate contains quality aspect of nature. People pretending passions and emotions, what they think about what other people say. Like when they bring up mental health. Little coward fakes. Delusions raw. Don't believe about black people's whites of eyes. I'm going to sweep them right clean. I'm going to show you how to delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects. and nature is actually recorded. I'm not even a doctor. You know, there are ones with badges, interagencies. They have the whole agencies, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, rot. They have the family members involved with there are proofs that there are probate court judges, family members who are involved with the other agents, other branches of government per their roles with use /s of location /s. A bunch of people I don't know on Two Route Highway where it runs into Hangdog Lane and where Hangdog Lane runs into Two Route Highway and their conjunctions. Complete strangers and ones I don't even know at all. They probably pretended I communicated with. That sought me out to make confessions relative, increasingly as the people involved, with the Wethersfield police forging and switching names and refusing to get on paper since I was a kid, as their roles increasingly with a whole bunch of different countries and avert criminal enterprises and private ones, the same ones who had time collusions with the World Trade Center attack, with people named Scalora, Demora, all sides of criminal and civil cases, interstates, as the ones in the Ninth Circuit Court too, and the court itself, with proven sequence shift from inside the court, right before the World Trade Center attack, presented to the panel of judges, had been switched the date from inside of it, and names on both sides of that case and their sources too were affected, attached to fake conversation, fake ties with me by people at Central Connecticut State University, involved with predicate acts intercities and on my street. And they did it with a whole bunch of different police forms and a whole bunch of different excuses and on my street from other intercities as the ones involved. You know, so they bring up all these names and things and they pretend they don't understand what people are talking about. That's also how they leak, because they have obligations by the law to get on paper, one name and sequence. Stop hiding behind fake entertainers who pretend passions and emotions only to obfuscate and change what's actually recorded. And for only an individual can defend the order of the finite. So WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, take me off the fake conversations with you guys, and apologize to Eminem, and fear God. In other words, play games. In other words, they want to have a debate about this. In other words, these are CNN sources too. CNN has roles with intelligence at Central Connecticut State University. A whole bunch of people talked about Heather Hansen and boyfriends of hers are involved with some black KKK Confederate flag theme, sexual and medical offenders of kids, and who had roles with home break-ins through the years in my area. And one not too long ago, which has the same corner of Carriage Hill and Fairlane, involved also with a guy who said he was a partner of Kevin Dillon to a speech class. The second time I had a speech class in high school, and I had to stay back because the other speech class teacher, who's increasingly involved with people from Washington, D.C., involved with medical corruption. I never had a personal conversation in my life. She put a little check, tell me to stay back through a principal who also has increasingly people at the colleges and the universities planting predicate acts in the databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, and affecting confessions. I never had a conversation in my life with a Joshua Stryker. A Joshua Stryker was pretending things with the various agencies and people with conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices at Trinity College, involved with my neighbors and people tied to them who are involved with ongoing wire crime acts and methods and predicate acts with the Wethersfield police refusing to identify themselves legitimately. And at the same time, courts have been speaking fake things in databases with them and their roles with more than one child abuser, leader of our kids, first forced and then proven anyway. But they have more then and now involved with it. And their extended family members also has ones involved with the World Trade Center attack spots and their roles with this. In other words, with the neighbors of victims of the World Trade Center attack through time, involved with, they'll tell you, they only know me through others, and they were lying to them. Increasingly, people with the name Eric Oliveri and Craig Oliveri and a Joshua Stryker are involved with my neighbors, planting evidences, my past neighbors, and in other words, and the ones with the name below, planting evidence and people tied to them, like with the name Zano. He says the name Puzo. I never had a conversation with them at Puzo. In other words, there. In other words, they try to take my picture walking next to them. And they try to make a fake tie, make confessions that way. I never tried to contact Paul Zano in my life. In other words, too, no. It has something to do with a highlight place, too, and a John Mayano involved with sequence ships of various natures of a whole bunch of different countries involved interstates. And they have people involved with the name Luigi Guerrero and educators of his sister and of himself have them in collusions between campuses through time, and at Central Connecticut State University. In other words, these are little coward games with the guns and with the smoke, the fire departments. They have roles with fire departments too. In other words, people with the name I never saw on the campus. And when I went to a prom, and I saw Mike Del Ferro there, that wasn't a campus. I never saw him on campuses, no, or Chris Del Ferro. They have probate court judges and their family members, and they have roles with a spot of family with probate court judges on 2 Route Highway, where there's a Victorian house next to them. I don't know if it's the same people that live there, but they're associated with a Phil Cololo. He's involved with some wire crimes and drugs and medicines crimes with kids, with foreign and domestic medical families and judges and prosecutors speaking fake things and delusions into records. Delusions is necessary to note too, because that's real as heck. In other words, and in other words, you can't be rooted to them. In other words, because they're psychopaths, and they'll smile or whatever. But they're psychopaths. They're collusions /S with all natures of crime scenes through time, and increasingly at each campus that we went to, not just me. It's recorded how each age and nature of campus, including fire campuses and medical campuses, they have connections that they're not supposed to leak about. But thank God they do and can't help it, because they leak it for the breaching method too, because they have a whole bunch of Russians in Ukraine, and they're doctors at Hartford Hospital involved with wire and mail crimes with them and with predicate acts on my street, as ones involved with Central Connecticut State University in Britain from Wethersfield through time. Not just so it's important to get them on paper, one name in sequence, because there's much more involved. And they recorded their, in other words, even Enzo Fienza recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed federal crimes with the body dumping spots and switching narratives about that, and roles of predicate acts with people associated with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso, involved with a Kevin Dillon. He's also one of the ones, Kevin Dillon, where I was planting evidence on all sides of my house with a whole bunch of people tied to him. And the guy who said to my speech class, second time I took it, that he was from a house near the corner of Fairlane Drive and Carriage Hill. I never had a word of conversation with him. They also have rules with Lowe's and with the Home Depot on the Berlin Turnpike, and with conjunctions to that, as the rules with the intelligence used remotely, criminally, foreign influence through time, tactically, delusions, raw. Increasingly, people have 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. I don't know at all. And ones that just tried to make fake exceptions of me being seen with them there. Because as ones involved with the wire crimes of the Wethersfield police and wire crime methods, including them faking transcripts. And these are police departments attaching little kids to fake conversations with themselves and with others into the databases through time. And then they had to hide that by things tied to that, by pretending that through the news too. And these are the same people involved with government access television, also with Ukraine and Russians and all those other countries, involved also with their roles with the system. Like, these are people involved with fire departments and corners of streets involved, where they've been planting evidences also with the news at the same time with the interbranch, so they'll never have the right outcome in cases in the future too. So they'll never have a proper appreciation of American history. We have people offensively pretending they need to have faith in their identity of the branches of government titles, things like that. Meanwhile, they're watching everyone with disgusting treatments of each other, Republicans and Democrats. And when they're unified, that's disgusting too. Then we're gonna force quality of fact cheaping nature. Proper. There are sequence-shift cover-ups, pretending, oh, well, you saw with your eyes trying to stop a regular election. Let's go with the. You guys are forcing that there's no the quality of fact cheaping nature is criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and collusion/s. You guys have been preventing me free speech offensively with the networks and with the differences of the public government access. Know how they have the black posts. They have people from the streets who have been speaking in the public, like on Copper Mill and in Weathersfield, Connecticut. Copper Mill has roles with names involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, state police, families, interstates. There are proofs that Secret Service people are involved also, per the confessions at Central Connecticut State University, and people tied to that who also recorded, confessed, demonstrate from they didn't bring up, but they recorded. They have roles with people on Valley Crest Street in Weathersfield and Morgan Circle who have been planting evidences in wire crime action methods with police, falsified police reports, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people putting fake things in databases that aren't even in classes together, trying to make fake exceptions. There are proofs that there are people trying to take pictures. Like there are proofs that someone took a picture of me coming out of the door, and then Kevin Harris walking out of the door behind me. I never had a verbal conversation with a Kevin Harris in my life. He's increasingly involved with a Fred Grouset and a Rick Cianfaglione with prosecutors and judges with a whole bunch of different countries, including people from Ukraine and from Russia, involved with mayors, identity, and people with medical corruption with kids, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And they say, too, on Zion Street in Hartford, next to Trinity College, with my neighbors, planting identity theft frauds with them. And the police phones families involved with them, not just with the Weathersfield police, too. A whole bunch of Connecticut police departments involved with the people named Smith and Cololo, and their roles with Stop and Shops in Hartford and in Weathersfield. Since before they were Stop and Shops, they have the managers of there involved with the same house/s with extended family members in themselves involved with the further more than and now proven principles. Proven child abusers, leaders of kids, and people with the elderly homes at the same time. The same families involved with it. There are proofs that they have roles next to the veterans' homes, clearer than day, criminally foreign influence, quality aspects in nature about the veterans' homes. Know how they look just like those buildings behind people angry in rap videos. Yeah, get them on paper. Well, I'll show you how to force science to be proper. Who disbelieves? Get them on paper. Connecticut's branch has been switching and forging names. So they have intelligence with all these different countries in the news. At country at like Central Connecticut State University, with a whole bunch of people from Weathersfield, a whole bunch of ways recorded on all sides of that Central Connecticut State University collusion/s also with people on it, where the departments themselves individually grouped and together they are used and have been used remotely criminally foreign influence since before anyone was born. Vaccines. The founding right from the founding locations, where there's a witch trials place next to Webb House, which they changed the name of to the Webb Stevens Museum. No. Totally criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw readings of reality too behind that. But in other words. And it's not personal. So they go, well, look what you just said. In other words, we have to get people on paper because that's how sick it is, too. In other words, black pupils, it is time. We have grown men whining like women about mental health. They can shut people down. They're putting fake things in databases. You have sick men and women involved with Harper Hospital, a whole bunch of them, putting fake conversations with people involved with the same house/s near me, and ones that used to be with them involved with a whole bunch of wire crime action methods with them. And what are they doing with the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, increasingly with the people involved with this? You guys got a whole bunch of people involved in intercities at the same time, and I still can't get a response. So you're leaking more and more. We're going to examine how things work.